Okay, hi everyone. Can you hear me well? Does that make sense? Yeah? All right, so Myriam Morissette, I'm really happy to be here today, and like Cordon mentioned, I'm based in our office in Quebec, if you didn't already notice by the accent. So, yeah, a little bit closer, like that is better. All right, so I'm going to be talking to you how we think at SVP Group we can do better in soil management using current technologies such as PigFlow. So most of you probably don't know me, so I'm going to start a little bit with of my background. So I didn't grow up in a pig farm or in a farm anyway, so I think to be completely honest that both my parents are still trying to figure out how I ended up working in the agricultural business at all, but I guess that's a story for another day. So I started to work in the swine industry a little bit over 10 years ago, so this picture comes from the first time I started working at a sow barn. So it was a 1,000 sow barn, and I started working in breeding, and that's where I fell in love with pig production. Look at that smile. And is it just me, or the piglet is smiling too? Like we had a moment there, didn't we? Yeah, so I started working to that farm and I did some breeding and I really fell in love with it. And since then, I was studying in college and then university. I've been always working in pig production. So I did a couple of different sow barn. I also work in a research barn for Solio in Quebec. And then after a while, I wanted to know what it was to be working in nurseries and finishers. So I went to manage nursery and finisher barn while I was at university because I did really want to learn everything I could know about the pig production. So when I finally graduated from university, I got hired by a big system to work on a 12,000 sows project up north in Quebec. So basically it was 5 farms of 2,400 sows each. And let me tell you what, it was completely crazy. Like, it's a very intense and challenging way to start a new career. So the first day on the job, they had me visit one of the 2,400 sows unit, and they basically told me like, here's a couple $1 million building. Here are 9 Guatemalan that only speak Spanish. And just for the sake of the story, at that time, the only word I knew in Spanish was cerveza, because, priorities, right? And so they basically told me, yeah, this is your new barn. Please perform and please manage and perform with like no help and with no manager. And it was a very, very challenging way to start my new career because it was like that for the first month. And then they told me, here's a second barn and then a third. And I ended up overlooking almost all of the operation. And it was incredibly challenging because we had to deal with a lot of labor crisis. You know how it is. A lot of employee turnover. We were constantly trying to be training new employees, and we were working very hard. And I remember I was constantly like feeling a bit stressed, a lot stressed as actually, and frustrated because I felt like I was seeing a lot of potential in my crew, and I felt like we could do better. But I was frustrated because I felt like I didn't have the tools to go gain that potential and to be just better at what we were doing. And part of it was because I felt like I didn't have the tools to know what was going on. Like, I'm telling you, the way we manage sow barn today doesn't work anymore because we do not know what is happening on a daily basis. We don't know who's doing what, when are they doing it, and we sure don't know if we are compliant on our processes and the targets that we put ourselves to attain. So, yeah, and I remember at some point I was at the farm and I was staying late and I was, looking at the results from the last batch and I was preparing that big whiteboard in the kitchen so we could have a discussion with the team the morning after. And at some point I just took a step back and I was looking around me and I was like, isn't it ironic that I work in a brand new building that is really technologic and I still work with pen, paper, and whiteboard? And I'm here and I'm displaying results that I can no longer act on. Like, I'm displaying results that happened in the past 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks ago, and now we're gonna have a discussion altogether on how we could have done better. That didn't make sense to me. It felt frustrating. So anyway, I did that for a while, and I did my best to make it work. And after a while, both my body and my surroundings made me understand that I needed to take a step back. So what happened then is that I left, and at that point I was so disappointed and so tired that I decided I would never work in the swine industry like ever again. So I quit, I went to do something else, I worked on other jobs, and after a while I've started to be in touch with both the owners of our clinic in Quebec, so Demeter, so I'm talking about Martin and Sylvain if you know them. And since the very last minute of our discussion, I didn't want to go back. I was about to say no, but at the very last minute, for some reason, I decided I would give it a second try because I believe in their vision. So I moved and I started to work in the swine industry again. And after a couple months of the job, we started talking to those two crazy guys on the left side of the screen. Maybe some of them already met them. So you have Matt right there. He presented here a couple months ago or maybe a year ago. So maybe you already seen them. And here is Abraham. And both these guys, they are the co-founders of SwineTech. So SwineTech is an American-based company that focuses on empowering pig producers by providing new tools and really innovative technology. And they are really cool guys. If you get a chance to meet them at a congress or anything, go shake their hands. They're really, really inspiring human being. And what was interesting is when we started to talk to those guys and to learn more about what they were bringing to the industry and what was their vision, I felt like for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had finally some hope that I would be able to someday maybe reconnect with my passion. Because I truly believe in their vision, and we really believe in that at SVP Group. So their vision basically is that for them, our greatest asset in the industry is our people. And the future of the industry is going to have to be to build for our people and innovate through them instead of around them. And that's a little bit with that idea in mind that they came and they built PigFlow, which is a workforce management and point of care platform for pigs that focuses on empowering employees with human-centered automation and operational intelligence to provide high quality and individualized pig care. So how PigFlow works basically is that everybody in the farms or in the facility gets a device. Now this device, of course, they can be locked down to prevent using a YouTube during working hours, or some farms sometimes they will allow Spotify, but that's very for you to decide. And then we run a Wi-Fi backbone through the whole farm, so then everybody can be connected to each other within the millisecond in real time. And they have a really powerful tool in their hand while they are working to help them guide them towards the different processes and the operations on a timely manner. What's interesting about PigFlow is that they didn't want to reinvent the wheel. So PigFlow will connect, it will work with the actual technology that you already have into your farm. So I'm talking here in the first place about your record keeping system. So PigFlow will connect with your PigNose, Porcitec, Metafarm, whatever you are using currently, and it will work with it. It will not replace it, because PigFlow really focuses on the execution and on a day-to-day basis, while record brands, they will be more about historical analysis and collection of data in a longer period of time. The other part of it is that SwineTech, they work really closely with Gestal to have a Gestal integration. So the idea is that now PigFlow can communicate to your Gestal feeders, so you don't have to enter the information twice. So the idea behind all of that integration is that when they built PigFlow, one of the ideas they had in mind is always spend less time, collecting and entering data, and more time providing high quality of care with pigs. Where we can do a difference in the swine industry is having our people, our trained people, to be working with our sows and our piglets, and that's what they had in mind. So with both of these integration, you don't have to do double entry of the data. You do it once, you do it right, you do it efficiently, and everything works together. So at SVP Group, we are really proud to be the distributors of PigFlow in Canada. So just to give you a little bit of an idea, SwineTech currently, they have around 375,000 sows on PigFlow so far. Here in Canada, we're talking about approximately 25,000 sows so far, so it's going very good. And from the experience I've had, so I've been working 100% of my time on PigFlow since a couple of months. And so far, the feedback is really good. Like, people, they really love it, and once they start working with it, they really appreciate it. And the retention rate is around 95%, or 96% if I'm not mistaken. So it's a really interesting tool, and we truly believe in this. Although there's nothing right now that compares to PigFlow on the market, it's the only one there. I couldn't find any single product that can compare to it, but we think this is going to be, or tools like PigFlow will be the future of the industry, and that's the next step that we need to take as an industry in pig production. So we're really proud to be their distributor. So how it works more in details is that basically what we do is we will first meet you and do 1, 2, 3 meetings, whatever it needs, to make sure that you get a hold of everything that is PigFlow, because it's really complex and I sure won't be able to go over it all today, but we will show you a demo. We'll evaluate what is your current context, how do you manage your operations, and we'll help you evaluate if and how you can take advantage of such a platform. We will help you calculate the provisional ROI as well and make sure that you take advantage of it. And then what we do is we come and we install the Wi-Fi backbone. And we also connect with your existing record-keeping software, just like I said, and we help you input your own SOPs into the app and create usernames for your employees, and then off you go. So then what we do is we come and we spend 3 full days on the farm to provide the training for PigFlow and to be there for the crew. And the reason why we do that is not because PigFlow takes 3 days to learn to work with. Actually, to be completely honest, it takes approximately 1 to 2 hours, and that's it. The reason we stay 3 full days is just to make sure that we are there to absorb the stress of change and make sure that the employees, they feel guided and they feel that we are there to support. And usually, after the second day around noon, we get thrown out of the farm because people are like, this is easy, we don't need you anymore, get out, you're just in our way. So that's pretty much how it works. So now I'm gonna walk you through some of the features in the app so you have a better idea of how it works and a better visual. So if I start with walk farrowing. So walk farrowing will virtually allow you to walk your farm. That's exactly how it works. So now I can be wherever I am in the world, and I can see what's going on within my farm. I can see how many sows do I have in my room, how many piglets. I can see how old are they. I can see where are my at-risk sows based on prior performance. I can see, do I have like issues in that room. I can see what is my pre-wean mortality by room, and this is all real-time data. So that will give you a lot of information, and it's really easy and really a good visualization of live operations. And yeah, you can have access to it. I can even be in China and have access to what's going on into my farm in real time. Yeah, sorry. The second feature I wanted to talk about is Farrow Tracker. So this was initially their flagship feature when they first created the app. So how it works is it's going to show a tracker of all the cells that are currently into farrowing, and it's going to keep track of time and of when do they need to be checked again. So I can decide that I want to check my normal cells every 30 minutes, and let's say I want to check my at-risk cells every 15 minutes, and it's going to keep track of it for me. So what it does is it makes it that all the employees are at the right place at the right time more often, and the next house that is going to be checked is always the next house that needs to be checked. So it's really going to help prevent pre-wean mortality and stillborn. And I remember when I was managing the sow barns, how we could get out of the break and go into the room and do the snake and do always the same pattern. And turns out that the last sow on our that we would be checking, she would have needed attention right away after the break, and now she has 4 stillborns. It's crazy how we can lose a lot of piglets mortality with those simple details, and that's where it comes in very handy. And about the at-risk sows, what's interesting is that it's all SOP based. It's all automated. So when you do the settings, and we will help you with that, the app will think for you what should be an at-risk sow and what is a normal sow, and it's going to guide the employees to be there when they need to be. It's going to do it for them, so it's relieve a little bit of the pressure of just taking those decisions, and then they just know, they will just be better at what they do. So another thing that is interesting is that it's also going to keep track. It's also going to keep track of the teat count for you. So what it does is when you're ready to start fostering, you will be able to go and see where are my litters that have piglets of 24 hours of age and under, and it's going to keep track of the teat count to piglet ratio for you. So now, instead of having to all over the room, note everything down, do some calculation, and try to think what I will do and how I will move my piglets, within 15 seconds, I can know within the palm of my hand, even if I'm sitting in the kitchen or at home in my couch, how many piglets do I have? I can know if I need to do nurse sows. I can know if I'm underutilizing my gills and if I have a training opportunity there for my crew. I can also know if actually where are my piglets that are at risk or do not have access to a teat. So it's gonna help me be way more efficient in my work, save a lot of steps and a lot of time. So now I can continue without mentioning the issue management component of the app. So what they do is they will allow you anytime in the app to flag a sow or a litter for any given problem. So let's say I want to flag a sow for being off feed, for being lame. I want to flag a litter for scours or whatever. I can do that, and then I can have a list that will review everything that's going on and give me a really global view of what are my issues and where they are. And what's interesting about it is that we think that it can be really helpful also for your health team and for your vets, because let's say you give access to your farm into PigFlow of Kurt or Cordell, and that's for you to decide. You decide who has access and not to your farm. Then if they have access, they can see it in real time and they can know what's going on within your farm without having to be there. So prior to come and visit your farm, they already know where they're going to put their focus, so then it can help them be even more efficient. And just like me, that with health disease and problem, like the sooner you know, the better are your chances to go through it without too much impact. Another thing that is interesting there is that you will be also able to record your treatment in this, and it's gonna give you a report that will be CPE compliant. So instead of having to write everything down on a piece of paper, you just put it in the app and it's gonna provide you with your report and you will be CPE compliant. Okay, another part that is interesting is the task management component. So it's gonna really help managers be more efficient on a day-to-day and communicate more easily the tasks that need to be done and how to prioritize them. So it basically takes you from the whiteboard to live movement, and it's fully customizable. So what's interesting about it is if I have 100 different farms that are using PigFlow, I have 100 different ways this section gets used. So you can really adapt it to your own leadership style and philosophy. So I can create a task, assign a priority, a recurring. I can decide to assign it to a group or a team, and if I'm the manager, I can assign it to a specific employee as well. So that's really going to help drive more of efficiency on the daily operations, and it's going to help to prioritize better. And this is real time as well, and everybody has access to this. So at all times, everybody can know who's doing what, and so it brings also transparency and better teamwork within the crew. And if I can come back to this one, I think it's a really interesting tool and something that I thought that I would be using with that if I had to go back where I was before. You know how I mentioned how I was constantly training new people, and that's something that was really frustrating to me because I felt like my best guy, they were always busy trying to train the new hire instead of working with my sows and my piglets, and I couldn't take advantage of their potential and their talent. Now, if I go back there and I have to train a new employee, I will just create a task list for training, and I would provide the employee with a phone, and I'll tell him go ahead and do what you need to, because you can put a little bit of description and SOPs within the task, so then he knows what he needs to do, and I could be able to monitor his progression from the distance, whether I'm in the farm or not, and then if he needs help, we can always use the chat that I will present afterwards to ask questions or to ask for help. So that's one way I would probably use that, based on my experience. Now there is the multilingual messaging, or the chat function. So this one is an interesting one because they put a group chat directly within the app. So there's no private chat, it's only a group chat for everybody in the operation. And what it does is that it will allow us to communicate in real time, and we can also break the language barrier with it. So we can translate with 99 different languages. So I can be writing in French, and my coworkers, they can be reading me in Spanish or English or Chinese if I want. So it's going to help a lot. And we found out that the farms or the employees, they really appreciate that function because it's going to help them save a lot of time. Because now if I'm working and I run into a dead sow or a problem with maintenance or anything, now, instead of wasting time trying to find a coworker and walk all over the farm to find someone, and finally it turns out he was in the washroom in the middle, then I can just get my phone right in the chat and continue to work and be right there with the sows and the piglets, where I can make a difference. And what's interesting about that is, Swine Tech, they ran a statistical analysis a while ago, and they ended up finding out that an employee in average will waste or lose 30 minutes to 1 hour and 15 minutes a day just walking around trying to find a coworker to ask for help or for a question, or just trying to figure out what task needs to be done next. So this and the task function as well can really be a game changer on better utilization of human resources. Now the web version or the computer version of the platform will allow you to have access to process compliance reports just like these ones. And I think this is really interesting, and this is where PigFlow is very different from anything else that exists on the market. Because if I give you an example here, we can see the percentage of the pharaohs that were assisted. And another one here is the sleeve count. So I can see how many times the sows they were sleeved during the pharaoh. And this is an interesting one because I was in a farm the other day, onboarding a farm in Quebec. And while we were doing the onboarding and I was walking in the farm with one of the employees, she said like that she felt like she wasn't doing the same thing about checking the sows as her coworker, and that they weren't doing the same protocol for sleeving the sows. And I was like, well, that's interesting, we'll see. And a couple of days later, or a couple of weeks later, I checked at the last batch, and this graph right here showed a lot of sows that were sleeved 0 times, and a lot of sows that were sleeved like 6 or 7 times, but nothing in between. So I was able to send that to the manager, and I told him, hey, you have a really good training opportunity here, because your crew is not doing the same protocol for the sleeving. So right there, in a matter of a couple of seconds, I could see that. Another good example here is the time between checkups at farrowing. So I can see if I am prioritizing my at-risk sows versus my normal sows or not. And I can see what's my average time between checkup. And I'm telling you, this is always, most of the time, it's not really compliant. And the best farm out there, they're usually 30–40% compliant on this, so there's a lot of opportunity that we can gain there to reduce piglet mortality and stillborns and wean more pigs at the end of the day. And this kind of information is the type of information I would never have known or have access to if I didn't have a tool such like PigFlow. And that's why I think it's a really game changer. And that's why I think it would have helped me a lot when I was managing soulborn before. Because to know that, I would need to go and spend hours and hours in the farm to observe the crew at work. And that's just not realistic. Another one here that's interesting is the hourly checkup compliance. So what we can see is whether we are compliant or not on checking the sows by the hour of the day. So what we usually see is sometimes we're really compliant in the beginning of the day, and once the afternoon hit, we start to be less and less compliant because the day 0 person gets bothered to go help with breedings or help finish with the task. So again, a really good opportunity to gain or to reduce piglet mortality there and to provide better training to the crew. So these are a couple of examples, but you have like a web version that will give you a ton of these reports and will really help you have a good visual on how you're doing about your processes and if you're compliant or not. Pricing of PigFlow is pretty simple. It's as low as 50 cents a sow a month or $6 a sow a year. So we usually see a ROI or return on investment of 4 to 1, and we'll see that in average 15–20% decrease in stillborn, around 7 to 8% decrease in pre-wean mortality, 2.5 decrease in sow mortality, and up to 1.4% increase in farrowing rate. So it's gonna really depend on your specific context and where you come from, but we usually get the return on investment pretty quickly. And what this doesn't mention is about, again, better utilization of human resources, so people will leave probably earlier or they will be more efficient. The learning curve will be accelerated also for the new employees, so these are all indirect returns that are a bit hard to calculate, but that need to be taken into consideration. So how we get that ROI is basically, we can picture that with that wheel, so we can now better set goals and expectations and communicate them more efficiently across the whole operation. We can provide better training, and we've had a lot of producers that are using PigFlow that told us that it really accelerated the learning curve. So they saw a difference there. People are more, they're just better at what they do. The app will also help reinforce good behavior in action towards your goal and towards your processes. And it's going to measure completion and compliance, just like I showed you with the dashboard. And with that, you can compare that to your results and outcomes, and it's going to help you and guide you towards better informed decisions. Okay, now I'll finish with that, but I want to tell you one last little story. So I want to take you to the very beginning of this journey when we first started to talk with Swine Tech. So like Mark said, we had the chance to go to Michigan, visit one of Dyke's farms. So they are a 18,000 sows operation, if I'm not mistaken. And they made us visit one of their farms where they saw an increase of 2.2 PSY. So they started around 29 and they ended up around 31.65 after less than 1 year of utilizing PigFlow actually. And what was interesting is that when we came back from there, I remember like both my boss in Quebec, they were waiting to hear my feedback and they were really curious to know what I was thinking about it. And I was pretty straightforward. So I sat there and I looked at both of them and I was like, you know, guys, I'm gonna make it pretty simple. If they bring that into Boreal, that was the system where I was working before, I'm just quitting my job here and I'm going back to manage sow barns. And they laughed, but actually I was pretty dead serious at that time. And the reason is I knew at that time that if I had a tool like that when I was managing sow barns, that would have completely changed the way I would manage my operation, and it would have increased my quality of life and the quality of life of my crew as well. And this would have been translated into better productivity. I know that if I had that at that time, with the crew I had there, we would be kicking the industry's butt, I can tell you that. And now, what's funny is that I was just talking with them just last week, because they're considering bringing PigFlow into the operation for real. But I came to the conclusion, like, if they asked me to go back, would I? And I said to myself, I wouldn't, because now I've been working in PigFlow for a while. I've been meeting a lot of people just like you guys, and now I have the opportunity to help hundreds of people and different farms to do better and to provide better animal and human welfare in the industry. So, and here's the rest of the Dyke's farms case study. So if you're interested to know more about it, I have the full bundle that I can send by email. But that's a little bit how they increased their productivity. So they had a better farrowing rate, better stillborns per litter, and they reduced also the piglet mortality. And that even though that they were a good farm in the beginning, and that led to an increase of 3,000 piglets a year in $135,000 without adding any new labor to the operation. So that's pretty interesting. And another thing that is not written there, but one of our vets is Robert in Quebec. He really likes statistics and numbers, and he's good at it. And we asked SwineTech to actually to send us a bunch of data. So we had 1 year of data before PigFlow and 1 year after PigFlow. And he ran a pretty complex statistical analysis on this, and we found out that they actually reduced their unproductive day by, I think, 2 days or so a year, was it? So it's talking about return of investment, that's they paid for it pretty quickly. So that was another interesting thing. So that's pretty much what I had for you today. So I hope you enjoyed the presentation. I just wanted to let you know I will be around for the rest of the day. So if you want to just come and talk and continue the discussion, that would be my pleasure. And you have also my contact info if you want to learn more, see a complete demo of PigFlow, or just discuss about it. Because like I said, we're bringing this to the Canadian market, and we've been working for a couple of months now, but we're still curious to know what you guys think about it, and we would really like to have your feedback on this. So please don't hesitate to reach out, and I hope you understand something, although the accent. So thank you very much. Any question? Is it because it was really clear and complete, or you just understood nothing? Understood nothing. Sorry? All questions are answered? All right.
So one thing for quite a few of the producers here, oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
For a few of the producers here, they're kind of smaller operations, and I'd just be curious to see your thought for value opportunities there and so on.
Actually, that's an excellent question. And when we first started working with swine tech and looking at that distribution, we initially thought that it was more for bigger farm and bigger systems. And what's funny is that my first customers in Quebec were very small operation, and they almost convinced me to get PigFlow because I didn't think it was for them. And it turns out that they are really happy with it and they really took advantage of it. And I came to the realization that PigFlow can be for almost everybody. It's just you're gonna use it a little bit differently depending on the size of your operation and gonna depend on what type of crew you have. But I have customers that are my smallest one is 200 sows, and it's a nucleus. And the bigger we have some 5,000 sows in the same building out west in Manitoba. So it can be for a very large range of producer. And that's why I was telling, like, if you just reach out and we can show you a demo, we can help you evaluate if that could be an interesting tool for you or not. And if it's not, I'm gonna be brutally honest and tell you. So feel free to, and don't like hesitate to reach out, even though if you're not like 10,000 cells, I still think it can be for you guys. So
Let's say you have pig nose. So you were talking about your teat counts, your pre-wee mortality. How much of that information do you have to put into each program separately, and how much of that information gets shared with the apper, if any?
yeah, so that's a really good question too. So how it works is that what we'll do is when we first create your farm into PigFlow, we will go into your pig nose or whatever is record keeping software. We will extract all of the data of your herd and we'll create the farm into PigFlow based on that. So what you will see in the app is exactly based on your history and is the more up-to-date data. And from there, PigFlow takes over. So once you go live, PigFlow becomes your source of truth, if you want. So all the data is recorded into the app as you work. And what's interesting with that is like I showed you when the farrow tracker, when you're looking for the sows, then when you complete the farrow, it gets recorded, and then you have your farrowing information. And when you win your sows, you win them into the app, and it gets recorded. So then everybody is held accountable of the data that they provide to the system, and then everybody participates in that. And how it works is then that PigFlow will communicate to PigNose. So you will take all the information from your PigFlow and you'll push it into your PigNose, and that's how it's gonna get fed, if that makes any sense. And we usually track everything that you need to track into PigNose. They're able to do that. And right now, how it works, let's say for PigNose, is that all the data that you enter into PigFlow is gonna be stored into the cloud. And then you will be able to download and export an Excel file that is in a format that they program to be absorbed by PigNose. And then you will go into PigNose and you will push that Excel sheet and everything will be recorded then. And how it works is it takes 10 to 15 minutes and you can do that. We usually recommend do it once a week and that's it, as simple as that. So you will save a lot of time on data collection, but if for some reason you need to add more information than what we record into PigFlow, you still have the opportunity to do that. And about that, I was just in Ontario a couple of weeks ago. We onboarded the Guelph University Research Center, and that was one of their main concerns. You know, because of research, they have to track like piglet weight and stuff like that. So we showed them that they can just use the Excel to take what they have into PigFlow and just add what they need and then push it into PigNose, and it's still efficient. So that's pretty much how it works. Does that answer your question, or does that make sense? Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah, you don't have to do it 2 or 3 times. You do it only once, and that's why Matt and Abe, when they programmed it, they were like, people don't have time to waste entering data and doing things twice. So you do it only once, and you do it efficiently, and then you spend more time with the sows and the piglets. So that was the idea behind that. And you mentioned about the teat count and stuff like that. So what's interesting is that PigFlow will keep that into memory. So for example, when we create the farm, since that data usually don't exist in your PigNose, it's going to default to 16 teats a sow, I think. And as you go, you start to update them. But if I said that this later, that the sow has 14 teats, the next time that she comes into farrow, it's going to remember and she's going to be set at 14 by default. So it's going to keep the history rolling.
So does it have the feed component, like if you're working with Gestol, it has the feed component in it as well?
So how it works with Gestol right now, it's just that Gestol does this thing, it's just that PigFlow help facilitate. So how it works is basically when you move your sow into your, let's say, farrowing crate, PigFlow is going to be able to share the information that Gestol needs to adjust the feeding. So it's going to tell him this sow is here, she's a parity 3, her breeding date is that, or whatever information they need, and it's going to kind of push the information, but all that is about nutrition and everything just all takes it over. And swine tech, that's their vision. They think that as the industry go, it's going to be more and more specialized, the technology, and they don't believe into one solution being able to do it all. So they think there's going to be more specialization, and they want to be able to connect with all those. So their vision is at some point they would like it to bring it to the next level where your Maximus ventilation component, your Gestol feeders, and everything you have into your farm could be able to communicate to PigFlow, and PigFlow would filter the alerts to give you like what's the next priority, where I need to put my attention next, but with being like connected to all of the technological ecosystem, if I can say it like that. So yeah, that's how it works. So it will communicate the critical information, but it will not manage your feeders. It's gonna be the Gestol side of it. And Gestol did a really good job with it, so why we would try to do it again. So does that make sense? Yeah? Perfect. Thank you. Is there any other question?
Hi, is PigFlow set up for like enter your breedings and when you use natural matings for your boar IDs and stuff like that?
Yeah, so it works into just, it's true that I showed more features about farrowing today, but it works with everything that's related to breeding and gestation as well. So when I record my breeding, I will be able to say like, what's the semen ID, what's the boar ID if I want. If you use PCI, you will be also able to, well, I guess that's not your question, but you will also be able to say who is the heat check technician and who's the breeding technician, so you can track performance really more precisely. So yeah, everything that you need to record you will be able to do it. You can also record the body score. Is that how you say that in English? Yeah, body score into that, and yeah, it's gonna record pretty much everything. So. And what's interesting also, and I don't want to go too much into details like that, but I was just talking with Arnie right there, and PigFlow or Swine Tech, the latest version, they released a version where you can be Prop 12 compliant. So I don't want to go too much into details because I'm not that familiar with that feature yet, but they added a lot of tracking and a lot of different features that are going to help you keep track of everything you need to keep track for being Prop 12 compliant if that's your reality. And it's going to help you produce your report that you will be able to show to your auditor if you get audited. So that's a really interesting one. We have a couple of farms in Manitoba that have been onboarded on the Prop 12 side of things just last week, and so far it looks really good and pretty solid. And the latest features that got released, I think this week or last week, was also about better early pig care. So now they also added the split cycle tracker, just like the farrow tracker, and a couple of other minor things like that. So they are really continuing to innovate and to develop and their vision is also to maybe around 2025. I was doing that all that time. Sorry about that. And yeah, their vision is that I talked to them a couple of times about that. So they would like maybe aiming at 2025. They are right now in another round of funding, and they will hire, I think, triple the number of programmers that they have right now. And they would like to develop the nursery finisher component of the app as well and complete the cycle. So you would be able to kind of track your batch from beginning to the end of the cycle, from basically the sow unit to the slaughterhouse. So that's another big thing that is coming, and there are a couple of others, but yeah, they're still innovating a lot. So that's going to be interesting in the next few months and years.